Hi, this is Alex with Maple Leaf Coffee Roasters. I'm here today to talk about the August Club Coffee, a Rwandan wash process coffee. Check it out. So just as a reminder, everyone, the Coffee Club program is something that we do here at Maple Leaf in order to give club members a chance to explore, try different coffees, maybe do something a little bit different than what their normal tastes go for. And we're always excited to run a few experiments with this program every once in a while. Members of this club get a 12-ounce bag of coffee roasted one of three different ways and an opportunity to purchase extra coffee if we have some extra available every month. This month we're running another one of our experiments where I'm getting the same coffee two months in a row, one as a natural process and one as a wash process coffee. So this month we're doing the wash process coffee first. And historically speaking, when I've done this multi-process club coffee program or system, what I've done is I've always done the wash process coffee first, because what you can expect from a wash process coffee is a little bit of a easier drinker, consistency, uniform flavor, not a super complex coffee. And I always like to show people what a coffee is like in a wash process form versus the natural process form at first, so that they get a chance to feel out what the coffee is going to be like, especially as we move into the more exotic territory that the wash or the natural process coffee sometimes can be. So this happens to be a coffee from Rwanda. We have the same exact farm's coffee next month. And this is a pretty conventional Rwandan coffee in a lot of ways in terms of the appearance and the roasting and things like that. Rwandan coffees, generally speaking, kind of borrow a little bit in some of the flavors that we see in other African coffees. It's not quite an Ethiopian coffee, it's not quite a Kenyan coffee. It has some similarities to those coffees, but not an exact replica. Usually they're a little bit easier drinking, softer in flavor, not as robust or tart or sharp sometimes as those Kenyan or Ethiopian coffees will be. In my experience, what I've also often seen with a Rwandan coffee is that it will have some similarities to something that I might expect from either Guatemala or Honduras as well. Especially on the light roast side of things, you'll see a lot of similar flavors and feels for a Central American coffee out of a Rwandan coffee as well. So this month I was actually quite surprised, and I'm really excited to see what the natural process equivalent of this coffee is going to taste like, because even this wash process coffee is quite exotic and complex, way more than I expected it to be, especially given that this is indeed a wash process coffee. So the three roasts that we did this month in terms of the way that they were roasted was an effort to try to get this coffee to progress as quickly as possible. So what I wanted to do both this month and next month is to try to highlight the coffee's characteristics and qualities itself, rather than the roast process that I'm putting this coffee through. In order to do that, what we try to do with a coffee like this is to try to roast it quickly, but not so quick that we end up with a burnt or dried out taste in the coffee. And this is something that sort of helps to highlight some of the innate characteristics of the coffee itself. So next month when I take this coffee and do the natural process form of it, I'm going to do my best to try to get it to behave the same way, as hard as that might be, and be a shorter roast process overall. So for example, both the light, medium, and all three roasts this month, light, medium, and dark, were shorter than what I would normally do in terms of the overall roast time. And some of the phases of the roast were even shorter as well. So usually they were about maybe 1.5 to almost 2 minutes of less roast time than an equivalent African coffee that I might have done in previous months, either for the club or for our normal shells. So what I was looking to do with that different roast profile and that different approach was to make sure that when club members get this coffee home, they're getting as much of the coffee taste itself as opposed to the roast taste. So we have a really fun and exotic kind of coffee to try out this month, and I'm really excited for people to give this a shot. The light and the medium roasts are very similar, not too far apart in roast level, pretty close in terms of their final temperature and the overall feel for the coffee. On the light roast side of things, this is where the smell had the kind of sweet honey, a little bit of that cinnamon note that I was talking about when I was referring to the similarities to the Guatemalan and the Honduran coffees. Had a kind of overall like toasted oat sort of feel to it as well. In some respects, both the light and the medium had almost like a woodsy feel. So not quite like smelling in a campfire, that kind of thing. It wasn't roasty tone, but it definitely had this kind of like woodsy smell and taste to it that at some points almost reminded me of the kind of taste of meat that you might taste when you were smoking meat, as opposed to putting on, like, say, a propane grill. The taste of the coffee itself on the light roast side did have a citrusy tone to it, kind of a lemony, sharp, tart edge. I'd say if you're a person that is interested in having something that has that tart, acidic feel to it, the light roast is going to be the choice that you want to make this month. And like I said, this is the wash process coffee. So I'm really excited to see if next month's natural process form, when I would do that as a light roast, is going to be even sharper, even tart, or more tart than this form itself this month. This coffee had an interesting quality to it, both on the light and a little bit less so on the medium, but it was still there on the medium side. After I drank it, I had this kind of tingling sensation in my throat. And I promise you I'm not sick. This is definitely just something that was, I feel that the coffee sort of introduced into my mouth as I was swallowing it. The medium roast had a more subtle, mellow, as you would expect, overall feel. Not as strong or bright or sharp as the light roast was, but it was more rounded, more balanced, and it had an interesting complexity to it that while the light roast did have a complexity, this one had an easier finish, an easier kind of stomachy feel to it. This one on the medium roast side also had more of a syrupy, almost malty finish and feel to it as well. So it sat in your stomach and it will sit kind of in your taste buds a little bit easier than that light roast will, but there's still some sharpness to this coffee too. So I'm kind of impressed this month that even the medium roast is something that will have a bit of a bite to it. And I would think that if you're normally a medium roast drinker because you like something more mellow, you may want to switch to the dark roast this month because it's going to kind of assault your taste buds a little bit more than a medium roast normally would. And I think that that might be something that you look to avoid this month. Overall, the medium roast had that syrupy, malty finish, kind of a dry feel as well. Not the super strong kind of dry, not like a super dark roast kind of dry feel. Took on more of like an herb quality to it, a little bit of a chocolatey tone, not super strong, but there's definitely a little bit of a chocolatey note there that we saw in that medium roast as well. Dark roast side of things, this one was one of those interesting coffees where the smell and the taste were two very different things. On the smell, the coffee, it really has that roasty, dark, fuller bodied feel that you'd expect out of any dark roast. And to be sure, I didn't roast this one super dark. I tried to stay just at the touch of second crack. So normally speaking, when we get to a second crack in the coffee roasting process, that's kind of when we hit dark roast territory. And pretty much right when that second crack occurs when this coffee popped out of at least the sample roaster for these sample roasts for me to get out of the roaster. And the smell was your conventional, fuller bodied, kind of toasty, a little bit of like a cherry feel to it, a little bit of a chocolatey note as well. But once we got this coffee, some water thrown in this coffee and brewed up, had much more of that kind of stronger chocolatey, almost powdery sort of feel to it. Had some similarities with the medium roast and had kind of a dry finish that was interesting and kind of made it so that when you swallowed this coffee, it definitely swallowed very easily as a result. Very robust taste. It had a full-bodied taste and kind of a round feel to it without being heavy. And that might be a weird thing to try to feel that, like, how could it be those two things? But the Rwandan coffees, we've had one on the shelf actually for a couple months. And the way that I would characterize that to a lot of people is it's a little bit of a lot of things, but not any too much of one thing. And for that reason, sometimes the way that the coffee drinks will be a lot easier to approach, a lot more pleasant, even in a dark roast form, that it's not going to assault your taste buds or really just overpower your taste with any too much of one thing. And the strength of this coffee is not going to be your like super dark roast, heavy feel to it, but it's going to linger in your mouth a little bit. Even with that dry finish, you're definitely going to know that you swallowed a dark roast coffee here. Still had that woodsy flavor to it too. So again, this is a dark roast coffee, and conventionally speaking, you will expect to see more of a roasty tone to this, but that woodsy kind of herb feel was an interesting exotic kind of taste to it that I am interested in hearing what people's feedback is about how they feel about that sort of flavor. So all in all, this is a really interesting coffee. I'm really excited to see what the natural process coffee tastes like next month. And I'm looking forward to having everyone give a shot to the same coffee roasted roasted the same way with two different processing methods for both this month and next month of September. So until next time, we'll see you back soon for another Club Coffee video. Take care.